Okay, everyone, let's get started. To start off the presentation, as I said, or as I was introduced, my name is Becky Pollock. It says Rebecca here, but my nickname is Becky. So please feel free to approach me and introduce yourselves as well. A little bit about my background before I get started. I want to give you an overview so you know why I'm giving you information. I was born in Seoul, South Korea, but I spent my life in America. I grew up in Chicago, Illinois. When I went to university, I went to Lehigh University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. It's very close to New York City, for those of you unfamiliar with the location of Pennsylvania. After I graduated from Lehigh, I went to work for a financial consulting firm where I did primarily accounting and finance work. Now, in my line of work, I had to do a lot of presentations to clients, to fellow coworkers, and to prospective employees. So I have a little bit of experience with presentations, which leads us into our topic for today, my topic for you guys. I want to do an overview about how to give good presentations, some tips, some tricks, some techniques, and some phrases that might be useful for you when you're giving a presentation, since many of you are today. My talk will be divided into two parts. First part will be giving some tips and some techniques, talking about appearance, voice, tone, volume. And then after that, we'll go into opening statements. Why is the opening statement so important for presentations? What can you say to make it more effective, more interesting? Okay? Throughout my presentation, this is an open, relaxed, formal presentation. So if you have any questions, if I'm going too fast, if you want me to repeat anything, please raise your hand. Feel free to stop me and ask me questions. Okay? Alright, so before I get into the boring stuff about tips and tricks, I wanted to give a little personal story about myself. When I was 6 years old, it's tradition where I grew up to do an annual holiday play. All of the first graders are assigned different roles. I was doing really well. I was a chatty little first grader, and all of my teachers knew I was never scared to speak in public. So, as it happened, they assigned me one of the lead roles, the lead speaking roles. You would think I would have been excited and happy to get all of the attention. Not as a 6-year-old. I was scared to death to do any type of public speaking. I went home and I cried to my parents, and I told them there was no way I was going to do any public speaking. No way. So after a lot of crying and a lot of commotion, my parents went to the teachers and asked them if I could change my role. So at 6 years old, I was not set for public speaking. In the end, I stood in the background of the play, holding up a star. And that was my role for the whole play. No speaking, stood in the background. As I grew older, I learned the importance of having courage to do public speaking. In order to be successful, you need to learn how to be a presenter, somebody who can stand in front of a crowd and not be afraid to speak. So, I learned a lot from being a 6-year-old and being afraid of speaking to today. So, I want to go over some tips today about a good public speech, how to be confident, and how to give a good presentation. Number 1, do not start speaking until you appear confident. Plant your feet, stand up straight, Scan the entire room. Make a connection with your audience before you start speaking. If you appear confident, you'll gain the interest of your audience. Number 2, speak to be heard, but not too loudly, right? If you're addressing a large audience, make sure everybody can hear you. If you check that people can hear you, it shows that what you are saying is important. It shows that you care that your audience can hear you and understand what you're trying to say. So be aware of your volume when you're speaking. Number 3, and this is so important, speak at an appropriate pace. I know when you get up here and you're looking at a bunch of eyes looking back at you, it gets really nerve-wracking. You get nervous and scared. But take that time, take a deep breath, and adjust your pace. Speak slowly so that everybody can hear you. If you speak too fast, it makes it very difficult to understand. In the same respect, if you speak too slowly, it can get very boring and you may put your audience to sleep, right? So finding a really good pace for your presentations is really important. Tone and volume. Make sure that your tone is confident and authoritative. If you are too soft or you feel too mild, you won't feel confident and you won't show that you're confident. Make sure that your audience can hear you clearly. Use a powerful posture, your stance. If I were to stand up here and give my speech with my arms crossed and my legs crossed and my head down, that's not a powerful posture. It doesn't show that you know what you're talking about. It doesn't show that you're confident in yourself. So make sure you stand with your feet slightly apart, shoulders up, arms open. Make eye contact with your audience. Arrive quickly at your points. If you have points and you don't focus on them, then you won't get your message across. Don't feel that every point has to be explained. If you just read it once, if it's not overly important to your entire presentation, then don't stay on it. Don't dwell on each point. If you are straightforward, you give authority. You show you are in charge. Involve your audience. Make your information real by using personal stories that relate to the talk to your audience's lives. I started off my presentation by telling you my personal story when I was 6. I know we've all grown up past being 6 years old, but for me, it was a sign in my life of why I needed to become more confident being a public speaker. Do the same. If you're giving a presentation about English, why? What made you want to study English? If you're giving a topic about your research, what in your life made you decide to choose that topic? Try to relate it to your audience members. Keep it simple. Concentrate your presentation on one central idea, right? I didn't come up here to talk about presentations and research and grammar. My one main idea is giving a presentation, tips and tricks on how to be a good speaker. If you try to say everything that you know about, you'll lose your audience. Be enthusiastic. You guys are doing a lot of research and a lot of work, and it's obvious you have a passion for what you're doing. So be enthusiastic. Speak with conviction and excitement. If you get excited about your subject, then hopefully your audience will too. And last but not least, end with a clear message. When you are preparing your presentation, think about one thing that you want your audience to take away with them. What is one point you want everybody to leave remembering? And with that clear message, what is it that is so important you prepared an entire speech to talk about? Always end on a high note. Summarize and end cheerfully. That will leave your audience remembering what you said. Opening statements. So your opening statement is how you start your speech. Does anybody have any ideas of why an opening statement might be important? It's okay. I figured it's a new topic. I brought some of my own points. It gets the attention of your audience, right? Your opening statement is your introduction to the audience. So get the attention. Hello everybody, welcome today. I'm so glad that we can meet today. It's a great way to hold your audience. You set the tone for the rest of the presentation. If you start out with energy, with enthusiasm, with confidence, you set the tone of what the audience can expect throughout the rest of your presentation. And you can inform the audience about the subject of the presentation. Why are you up here? Why is the audience sitting there listening to you? What will you talk about? You can give a good overview so the audience knows what to expect. Okay? So I've brought some great opening phrases. The way this next part of my presentation is structured is it's divided into 5 parts, and each part goes over some key phrases that you can use to really make a strong opening statement. How to open your presentation with impact. I believe I started mine out with, okay, let's get started. Are we ready? Other ways you can start your presentation. Okay, can I have your attention, everyone? So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started, shall we? Good afternoon, or good morning in our case. Good morning. Welcome to today's presentation. Our MC did a great job with good morning, welcome. Okay. Then you want to go into your introductions. If I started speaking without introducing myself, you would probably wonder who I am, what my name is, why I'm talking. Give an introduction. What's your name? I'm Becky, and I'm from the English department. Let me give some history about myself. I'd like to introduce myself. It's a great way to not just let your audience know who you are, but to connect. I'm opening myself to you and giving a little information about myself, so please be open to hearing what I'm saying. Okay? The third step in giving a strong opening statement is talking about what you will cover, your subject or the topic of your presentation. I plan to say a few words about. I'd like to talk about. The subject of my talk today is, and then go into what you will talk about. What will you cover in today's presentation? Fourth part, structure or agenda. How is your presentation set up? If there are 3 parts, let your audience know so they can keep track along with you as you progress through your talk. I told you guys today my talk is divided into 2 parts. We covered our top 10 tips, and then we're covering our opening statements. So let your audience know how your presentation is structured. Some great ways, some great phrases to do that. I've divided my talk into 2 parts. First, I'd like to cover my top 10 tips, and then I'd like to talk about a strong opening statement. In the first part of my presentation, I will cover my top 10 tips. All right? Giving a structure or an agenda for your presentation is a great way to keep your audiences focused. They can track where you are in your presentation. Last but not least, questions and discussion. This is a great way to make it interactive, to make it a two-way speech. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. This is where you say this portion. Please interrupt if you have any questions. If you feel that questions may disrupt the flow of your talk, ask people to hold their questions until the end. For example, after my talk, there will be time for a discussion and any questions, right? It lets them know, please hold your questions until after the talk. Or last but not least, during my presentation, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to interrupt me. Okay? Again, it's a great way to make it a two-way presentation, to let your audience be involved with your presentation. All right. Like I said, this is a two-way presentation, so I want to have you guys have a little bit of involvement. This is a little activity. These are steps of how to put together a great activity. I want you to look through these and figure out which way you would order these steps and putting together and preparing for your presentation. For example, you can select materials, formulate an objective, figure out your objective, write your final draft, organize your materials, prepare an audio-video aid, identify who your audience will be, write a rough draft, and practice giving a presentation. These are all steps. There's no right answer to how you would put together or prepare your presentation. However, this activity gives you a good idea of steps you should be taking in order to prepare a presentation. So I want you to review these, think about how you would prepare your presentation, and then think about it for the next time you have to prepare speaking in front of an audience. Okay. Thank you for your time. I appreciate your attention. Does anybody have any questions?
I do have one question. What is your recommendation or suggestion for ESL students? I mean, if they don't know grammar or English well, how can you?
I would definitely recommend writing out what you want to say. And the best point for an ESL student or for any practiced speaker is to practice. Last night, I was in my room talking to my mirror, practicing this speech. So for anybody, a seasoned native English speaker or an ESL student, write it out, practice. If you write it out, maybe you can have a professor or a native speaker review and look for grammar errors. And then once you do, practice.
Okay, do you forgive students who read out from the paper?
For my students in class, I always tell them not to hold their paper up. I do forgive them if they do. I understand it is a learning process. But hopefully with more speeches, you'll get more comfortable putting your notes down and relying on the practice that you did the night before or the weeks before. Any other questions?
My master degree student have done the different thing. They don't look at their notes, they look at the computer and read everything on the screen. And that is very, very annoying.
It's very frustrating. My biggest point with that, I tell a lot of my students, is to focus on eye contact with your audience. If you're focusing on your eye contact with your audience, you can't be looking up at your screen. If you're looking at your audience, then your focus is at them and on your speech and not the text on the screen.
I hope my master degree student have a lot of question to ask. Yes, please ask.
How I will a presenter for this symposium. How I reduce my nervous when I present in English.
How should you reduce your nerves?
What should I do to reduce my nervous when I'm excited to present?
Whenever I get nervous right at the beginning, right before I start. I usually take a deep breath and then think about it. Everybody here is here to support you. Nobody wants to embarrass you or criticize you. Everybody's here to support you. Just remember that you put a lot of time and effort into it. Remember that you prepared and that everybody here is here to help you. And then hopefully, it's hard to get rid of nerves entirely, but hopefully it helps to know that everybody is here for you.
I think get one point from her question. How you?
If I can't look on the wall and I remember school, what can I do?
To not look at the presentation or the notes, I think that has to go back to practice. If you remember, if you've practiced enough, you know what order you will be in. If not, I always keep notes just in case up here to refer back to. My biggest point though is to practice and really read it over before you start speaking so that you don't have to look at your notes. Yes.
How do I identify audience order? Please tell me what the effective way to identify the audience.
So for identifying your audience, know who will be listening to your talk. For example, today it's mostly students and people interested in research. If, for example, the audience was undergrad students, you would have to give a little bit more background into research methods or research why you're doing your research. For people who already know about the research, the steps that you're taking in your research, you can go directly into details without focusing on background and the overview. So identifying the research is really more about evaluating the level or understanding the level of what your audience already knows.
While you are present, if you have a problem with your people, so how do you do?
How do I work with that? Countless times in class, I've had issues with the overhead breaking down or my computer freezing up. In that case, I always have a backup. I keep my notes here so that in the very worst case scenario, if I don't have a PowerPoint slide, I can still work off my notes and hopefully still be energetic and enthusiastic enough to keep the audience's attention without relying on an overhead.
If during my presentation I do or I make the wrong accent, so should I say sorry and correct that word or not?
That's really a personal choice. I think if you feel like you are in, that you're flowing and your presentation is going really well, don't stop for every little problem. If you feel that it's really important for your presentation that you change the way you said the word or said the phrase, then maybe yes, you can go back. But overall, I think it's not important to focus on every single word. I'm a native English speaker and I mispronounce words occasionally just because you get nervous or because you're in the flow of your presentation. So don't worry about every little problem.
how can I deal with the question and answer part, because I'm a little bit I'm nervous when you see the screen. I watch the screen, but when in the question and answer part, I don't know how to deal with it. Sometimes I might have beating like a disco down, or I can't feel my leg. And, yes. So maybe improvising is a way that we can deal with it, but anything else, because I don't have any experience about the presentation.
To be honest, I've given a ton of presentations. You should have seen my hands when I came up here. I was shaking. I was nervous. It's okay to be nervous. Don't let the fact that you're nervous sidetrack you. Use it for energy. Use those nerves for energy. As far as questions and answers, it's okay to not know all of the answers. It's okay if somebody asks you a question and you say, you know what, I'm not sure about that. That's a really good point, and I'm going to take that back with me and research that. It's okay to not know all of the answers. During a question and answer session, answer the best that you can. And if you don't know the answer, admit it. Don't make up an answer, just say, I'll take that back and research. Thank you for that question. Okay? Any other questions?